And now for something completely different. And in that sense, I say it's different because it has nothing to do with my 2025 reading challenges that I got going on right now. That's why it says off topic. This video is about a certain author, and there will be more of these to come in other topics, off topics, that I'm going to do. But this is basically about one author that I'm never going to read ever again. I've read about 19 of his books, and out of those 19, I would say I liked maybe 3. And one of them was a short story anthology. And not even all the stories in the anthology were great. So, some were forgettable, but some were not. I'm going to talk about the series, and we'll see if you can kind of figure it out. But the first series that I had to muck my way through was 10 books. Over 3 different chronicles. And the idea behind it, I thought was kind of original, kind of interesting. To send a man who's suffering from leprosy into a world that makes him whole. Now, if that doesn't give away the stories, then you probably have not read them. Problem was for me at least is by page 20 or 30 he basically like takes advantage of of his host, the person that's showing him around. When I say take advantage of it, he takes her against her will because he feels whole, and it's been a long time since he's felt that way, and he just forces himself on her. Other thing, the writing style. Well, I guess continuing on with the characters, I understand that the character is supposed to be not likable. I get that, but if you don't like the character, then it's hard to root for him or her. You just really get to the point where you just don't care, and I kind of found myself that way here because he doesn't change. I mean, every time somebody gets close to me, he yells, "Don't touch me! Don't touch me!" And it's just like, dude, gotta lighten up. And also with the writing style, you have to be almost like a graduate student or have had to have gone to grad school, which fortunately I have, to understand a lot of the words that he uses, or else you need a dictionary, because he uses a lot of different big words unnecessarily, I think. And it's almost like he's trying to prove to the reader, hey, look at my vocabulary. Look at what look at me. Look at what look at what I know. The different species kind of left me as well. If you're asking the series and what it is, it's the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant Unbeliever. So now if you're looking for the author, Stephen J. Donaldson, I had to slew through 10 books of Thomas Covenant, and this was probably going back to 2021, so right before I started doing this channel, and I still held the same challenge then as I do now. If I start a book, I have to finish it. If I start a series, I have to finish it. And it was so hard to get through because they were slow reads, they were long, and to be honest with you, I think to save the world that the fantasy world that he was in, and to have everything go well, I think it could have been done in a lot less than 10 books. Probably 8, 9, because I mean the way that they defeat the worm is almost like too simple. They spend all of book 10 worrying about this thing eating all the world, and yet at the same time they take care of it like that, like it was nothing. One other thing in the series that I did find interesting was that he takes a boy who has autism. Now, the reason why it interests me is because I work with kids who have special needs, some kind of cognitive impairment or autism. Not all of them are autistic, but some of them are. And he chose the typical autistic portrayal. Locked inside, not able to express himself. You know, it's the autistic person that most of us know. Smart, but he can't explain and he can't communicate any of that. He doesn't have that skill, that ability. He has a block, and the block is done by Lord Bane, or Lord Fowl, I should say. Who he's the main villain of the story, and for some reason he keeps coming back. In the last Chronicles, the last part of the series, the interesting thing is his son takes his ex-wife and basically has her hostage, and she's gone like stark raving mad, and she's doing a lot of destruction, causing these time warps and all this and that, and they have to figure out how to stop her and then how to stop him before they can stop the worm. Now, that's probably the harder part. It seems, it seemed like the worm would be not maybe the main thing to stop at the last book, because they take care of that so easy. But I thought it was interesting to have his son as the bad guy in the last set of books, and his ex-wife being there kind of, crazy, just mentally gone at that point. And I thought I thought the autistic person, the autistic boy, was interesting, but again, just I wish it would have been maybe from a different angle. It said that that he could build with Legos whole cities, and cities that portrayed the world that the characters had gone back to, that they've gone into. But again, can't express himself. He can't talk. He's locked within himself, and it's just like, okay, that's the typical portrayal of autism that we think of. So there was that 10-book series. Then I went into the sci-fi area and got into the Gap series, and at this point I really didn't know much sci-fi, very, very little, and I had heard somebody call this a space opera. I don't know what that meant. I didn't know what it meant. But all I do know is that it was a whole different writing style from the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant Unbeliever to the Gap series. Gone were the big words. The big scholarly words. And it was interlaced now with a bunch of 4-letter expletives. And, two of the characters are space pirates. So you can kind of guess that they're not very friendly. They're not very likable. Another character is, she's a cop who ends up getting caught and, again, taken advantage of, forced by one of the pirates. And has a son who it's weird because they deliver him as if he were 16 years old. The Gap series, to me, it was like I think 5 or 6 books, and even like the bureaucrats, the ones that are trying to save civilizations, they're not even likable because they're up to stupid crap too, and they're scheming and plotting and using people for their own ends, and the pirates are being used, and the cops being used, and she's got this implant in her that just leaves her sort of vegged, and if she doesn't have it, then she goes through withdrawal. It's like a drug kind of thing, and just through 5 or 6 books, I'm like, dude, can you make a character that is likable? Seriously. I didn't, I just didn't get it. Maybe it's just me. And leave a comment down below if you disagree with me or if you agree with me and why. Because I'd love to hear what you have to say about this guy. Because I've read a lot of there's mixed reviews out there. There are some people who really love him, and there's some people that just really don't. And I think I'm one of those people who really don't. Now, the series that I did like was a 2-book series. Go figure. Mordaunt's Needs. And this one is where everything, all magic is done through glass, through mirrors. And the main character is pulled into this world. She basically has nothing. She really has no life. She lives in a small apartment and has just nothing really to live for. And there's this guy in this other world who's sort of a bumbler, and he should be like a master apprentice, and he's not. As long as he's been doing it, he's not at that level where he should be a master. He's still at the lowly apprentice level. But he kind of pulls her into his world through the mirror, and now it becomes this matter of, okay, somebody's got control of the king because he's not all there. You got to figure out who that is, and there's plots as to taking over the kingdom and taking over this land and that land, and they have to try to figure out who it is that's doing it and how they're doing it. Obviously they're doing it through the mirrors, but how are they using the mirrors? And I thought that was a good. I thought that was a good series. I thought it was creative. I thought that it had, just a lot of. It had a lot going for it, and I think really, he might have been able to go more than 2 books with it. Unless he figured that, that would just be too much. It would be, too much more than, it would make it too long. I don't know. But I thought that was probably the best of the series. And then there's the anthology, The Daughter of Regals and Other Tales. And The Daughter of Regals is about 100 pages. And it was originally released, I guess, as a standalone volume. Basically, this is a mishmash of fantasy and sci-fi. Some stories, like I said, are good. Some are forgettable. But overall, I liked that book. And then there's a book that he edited, an anthology. He doesn't. None of the stories are his. I haven't gotten to that one yet, but that one will probably be good because he didn't write it. It's other authors, so that's a plus. But yeah, this would be one author that I would not read again. I know he's got a few other series that I did not read. Maybe those might be better. I don't know if it would be enough to redeem him in my eyes. I think out of 19 books or so, only a third being liked, and having 2/3 being like you have to trudge through it, doesn't do it for me. So, again, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear what you think, whether you agree with me or not, and why. And I'll respond. And either way, whether you agree with me or not, put down why. And, maybe we can have a little nice debate, and maybe you can get me to understand some things that maybe I might have missed in the Thomas Covenant series and the Gap series, because I just couldn't do. I mean, I finished them because I had to kind of like my 2025 challenge. If I start a series, I have to finish it, whether I like it or not. That was what I was doing back in 2021 too. I just didn't have this channel at the time. I started doing the channel, I believe, a year after that. But yeah, that author, this is one author I would not read again. And if somebody were to ask me, should they read him, I would say no. So, again, comment down below, let me know what you think, either way, and why. So, yeah, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you know when new videos come on out, because there will be more of these off-topic videos as well coming out, as I sort of get the ideas for them. Some might be like favorite authors, some might be little philosophical ramblings. It could be a bit of everything. So again, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a comment down below, because like I said, I'd love to hear from you and what you think, and why. And like I said, I always reply. And spread the word. It helps me out, and I appreciate it. So, as always, until next time, keep YouTube literate, and God bless.